Hello. So I've been told that Mike's excited, and when that happens, we definitely have to see what we can do to calm him down. So, Mike, what's going on?
Oh, excuse me. Let me just do this for a second. I'm digging the grave of the Houston Astros. I'm sorry. I have to. Well, I'd really love to drop a few expletives, but that would take us into an sort of X or R rated section of YouTube. But it just gave me such immense pleasure to watch them get pistol whipped by the Texas Rangers, because that's the baseball equivalent to the Montreal Canadiens beating the Toronto Maple Leafs in Texas. Well, not that, but Montreal beating Toronto is like Boston beating the Yankees. But in south of the Mason-Dixon, the Houston Astros losing to Texas because Texas has gone out and spent oodles of money on big free agents, spent big money on a manager, and then signed DeGrom, and then traded for Scherzer, and neither one of them was really, DeGrom is maybe done for his career, and Scherzer, is a shadow of his former self. They traded for Verlander back, all this stuff, and in the end, Texas pistol whips. And again, it's like 2019, Russ. That series with Washington, every team that was a road team won the game.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm going to give Texas a little more credit.
I'll give them credit, lots of credit.
Yeah, I'll be happy if they win because they've never won. They've only been in the World Series second time in their history, and they've had a lot of good players. They've had a kind of a weird history there. They've always been secondary to the Astros, so it's kind of a nice thing for them interstate to win like that,
The thing that was bizarre, and we know that the Astros were in the National League and they got shifted over to the American League, and it was a nice thing for Texas where you had a National League representative and you had an American League representative, one in Houston, one in the Dallas area, and then they moved Houston to the American League. And really, up until now, it hasn't been much of a rivalry because the Astros have already either been really bad or better. Oh, we got Anthony here.
Yeah.
You got Anthony coming in prior to Game 7, please, and Diamondbacks.
Exactly. Here's what I'll mention about Game 7s, because I've been to a bunch now in the NHL. I'm kind of lucky that way. But my first two cups were at Game 7s, 03 and 04, right? But the interesting thing is, I talked about this on Series Today. To me, the difference between baseball and hockey, like on a Game 7, baseball's tougher because there's a lot more moving parts, but B, there's also that interpersonal relationship between pitcher and umpire and batters and umpire. And like with baseball, it's all about a guy's approach, And so and Anthony could talk about this. I felt like the Phillies really were getting too worried the last game about the umpire, kept looking back on balls and strikes. And when you do that and you kind of get up at the plate, and maybe that ball one is going to be strike one, it does change your approach. So that's something where I think Game 7 in baseball makes it harder.
Now, Anthony, I just have to say this, Anthony. I'm like, now that the dragon has been slayed, and now that the Astros have, crashed into the proverbial side of the mountain, losing in Game 7 to the Rangers, I have no angst. I don't hate the Diamondbacks. I don't hate the Phillies. I don't hate the Rangers. I'll be happy. I know you're rooting for the Phillies, but I'll be happy with whoever wins, and I won't be sad if anybody loses. I'm satiated. I'm done. The Astros have lost.
You're Switzerland now. You're Switzerland.
Yes, I am.
As long as evil is done.
We'll see.
As long as evil is done.
The person I'm trying to talk off a little bit, like my son right now, is kind of took Game 6 hard, and he's kind of worried now about Game 7, and I'm like, this is part of signing in for being a sports fan, dude.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is actually, you got to embrace these moments, because if it happens well, and I think the Super Bowl kind of made him a little sore last year after the Eagles lost to the Chiefs. After
I know that 4.
Exactly. That's what I told him. I said, listen, they've been in 4 Super Bowls and they won 1, and you saw that one, so you can you at least saw 1.
And you beat Brady, and you beat him with a backup quarterback. It's like Hostetler beating the Bills. It's
I think it was absolutely on that level, no question. I think.
No, and I get it. Anything can happen in a game 7. And of course your Suns should be worried. Diamondbacks fans should be worried too. They all should be worried. I picked the Phillies, so I'm still going to see if they win. I don't care who wins, to be honest, but I don't think the Phillies are going to win it all. I still think Texas is kind of like this team this year. Maybe I'm wrong, but I said it a couple weeks ago, and I'm sticking to it. So, but I do like it, at least because the baseball playoffs started off really lousy, but now they're starting to finish strong. So
yeah,
well, yeah. You got a pair of 7-game. You got a pair of 7-game LCSs. I mean, which
I can't beat
and
it.
especially as wild as that ALCS was, not a single home team won a game.
No.
No.
You would think this was the hockey playoffs.
The first, everything was all sweeps. Everything was sweeps early on. It was really bad. But anyway.
Yeah. No, it's been fun actually. Even as a casual baseball fan that I am, just following it, and it just everybody gets into it. It's fun. It's fun for the city. It's a fun time to be a Philadelphia sports fan. It really there's a lot of stuff going around.
There's no question about that.
This is. I mean, the Eagles are a very good team, if not the best team. And then you have the Phillies are a very good team, if not the best team, and it's really interesting how this is going to play out here. And the Flyers are playing better than they should, but they're definitely not the best team. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, no question. But again, we've also been in this. Listen, last year the Flyers also had a surprising start, and all that has to be taken into account when thinking about where they're at as a team right now.
Yeah. I did want to check the. I have a special for the bet that I have later with these guys. I'm going to show the save percentages between Carter Hart and the battle that I said Carter Hart would have a better save percentage.
It's early,
but I just said he would have a better.
Show it. Let him get it out.
Yep. Well, let's start.
Carter Hart's save percentage at the end of the year would be better than Connor Hellebuck's. That was my bet, and I think I'm still feeling good about it.
Let's start.
Well, you're feeling good because you're never going to pay off on it.
I pay off on everything. How dare you? All right, here we go. Hello, Hockey World. Let's try. Let me find the date first, and I'll say that.
Take 2.
Hello, Hockey World. It's Tuesday, October 24th, 2023.
I'm Michael Jello.
I'm Anthony Mingione.
Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I am Eklund, and you're watching the HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world. And I wanted to start today. We only had one game last night, but we have everybody playing tonight. Flyers play at 11 o'clock Eastern time.
11's tough, man. We have to admit.
That's my job.
Being recorded.
I get the promotional aspect of this. Frozen Frenzy, 16 games. And starting
the first game at 5, Mike. There's no reason not to start. If you're going to start at 6, start at 5. It doesn't really matter.
Right, but then
everybody playing from work anyway.
The Leafs Capitals. It's at 6 o'clock. Sabres Senators. I think they're starting at 6:45 because the presentation for Craig Anderson's retirement is going to take 45 minutes probably. But
really, so the rest of the country has to suffer for something marginal like that?
He's not marginal to them. He was there.
It's going to be ridiculous. I mean, it's going to be interesting because, of course, everyone's going to be coming in the Philadelphia area is going to be coming from watching the Phillies game, which will probably be over by 11. But you never know.
Baseball. We have innings. Who knows?
If we have
I wouldn't count anything on there.
If each team trots out 40 pitchers, it's going to go on forever. And
but here's the thing, look, I think it's a great thing having all the games on one day. I love that. I do think even for people in Vegas, if you work and you got to be in your place by 7, you're going to get out of that stadium at like 11:30, 11:45.
Right.
I get it. It's only one time. But we have to be honest about something. The percentage of people, and I hear some fans getting mad about other fans saying they probably can't watch the whole game. The percentage of people that are going to finish that Flyers game on the East Coast is probably like 5%.
I cover the team. I probably won't make it.
I have to do a show.
It's our job.
In the morning.
It's our job to watch that game, and
in the morning.
Yeah, and it's going to be impossible. I mean, it's going to be virtually impossible to cover that game. You'll have to watch it. Or watch the condensed version in the morning on. That's probably what I'll end up doing. But
I'm going to try and stay up for 2 periods, and then I've got to watch the 3rd period before I do a show. That's my morning tomorrow.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be crazy, and I mean, I don't mind it. I wish it was if you're going to do this wall-to-wall hockey, do it on a weekend. You know, why wouldn't you do it on a weekend? Why wouldn't you?
I know why. Because ESPN has other plans for weekend stuff like college football.
Yeah.
Right.
But wait till that's done. I mean, there's a point in time in which you can do this in February or March where there's nothing.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, if you wait until February, you could really do it.
And then start a game at 10 a.m. and end a game at midnight. I'm fine with all that.
But the problem I'm having, and I've heard about it talked about recently. I mean, this is an ESPN basically an event for them.
Right.
ESPN essentially has told the NHL they don't want the schedule started until the second week of October because they have baseball playoffs for the first week of October. So, you know, the reason for people complaining about the season going into June and into late June and the draft being in late June and all this stuff about decentralizing the draft, which I want to talk about in a minute, blame ESPN because the season should start October 1st. It should end in the early June. There should be enough time to have the NHL draft and then lead into free agency. It should not be stretched out so much. I agree with Pierre LeBrun and a lot of people who said the season should start earlier, but because they're getting billions of dollars from ESPN,
and that's going to keep the salary cap going up. Like it's a process there, Mike. It's a chain.
Yeah,
part of what you have to give. You got to give to get, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that, but starting earlier, I don't see how that would be a bad thing for ESPN. I mean, that really September is a dead month. You know, like it's kind of a dead month, right? I mean,
no. For them, okay, they have the NFL and they have college football, but their problem is that they have the baseball playoffs. They have the first round of the baseball playoffs, so they don't want the hockey being relegated specifically and only to ESPN Plus. They want the programming on ESPN and ESPN2. But
wait a minute, I got breaking news.
Go ahead.
This is coming out of Columbus. A writer named Mark Williams from the Dispatch is saying that right now there is no power at Nationwide Arena. They have a power outage. So already ESPN's million team game thing is in jeopardy because they don't know if they're going to be able to get this game in.
So it's going to be 16/15 games.
You don't need power for hockey.
This was talked about earlier. I saw a post on this because I think it happened. Actually, I think Allison Lucan, who's obviously been on our show, who obviously works for the Seattle Kraken, she was posting about this and said how she had to basically was manually doing stats when the power outage was when they had a power outage previously at Nationwide.
Yeah.
And how they basically, I think, I could be wrong on this, how they went basically off of her hand stats when they had a power outage.
And
so this isn't a first for Nationwide.
And that's one of the early games. That's a 6:30 game.
6:30 game, yeah.
So
yeah, that's oh man. Well, let's get into the decentralized draft. We will talk about, Mike. I'm going to wait on that for a second because I want
to talk about the pride.
But I think except for us, I think that makes sense. For us, I think it's an interesting thing to talk about for sure. But I do want to talk about Alex Ovechkin for a second, and what's going on there. The fact, he hasn't scored a goal yet. The fact he's got 2 shots per game as opposed to 4 shots per game. And I'm saying all this, I kind of expected him to go crazy tonight and, and score some goals. But because he's going against, I think, Bedard tonight, right? Is he going against Chicago tonight? Washington? I don't remember.
No, Washington's playing Toronto.
Washington's playing Toronto tonight. That's right. Okay, yeah. So they could definitely score some goals. So
I wrote about this today. Ovechkin, basically, it's playing the blue and white is like going to Lourdes. It's like, it solves all. He has scored 41 goals in like 55 career games, something like that. So, yeah, he's like welcoming, Austin Matthews and them with his open arms. Come, folks.
Should we be worried about Ovechkin is my question.
Yes, he's 38 years old. I brought up as an example Keith Hernandez in baseball because he's a guy that played for like 17 years, never injured, played all the time. You could count on him. He gets, he signs a free agent contract with the Indians. He plays 10, 15 games. He gets a calf injury. He's never the same. All of a sudden, he couldn't shake it the rest of his career. You never know when that's going to happen to a player. And 73 goals didn't sound like a lot, but, if he starts getting hurt, it's going to be a lot.
It's completely well. It's not injury right now, but
I know, but it could be that.
But yeah, no. But I mean, let's just say this. I think if you're looking for a comparable when it comes to professional sports and Ovechkin's chase of Gretzky, it's going to be Miguel Cabrera. He's going to crawl until he's 42 years old over the line to get those 70 some odd goals. You know, it may take him 3 years, but he's going to do it. Unless he just falls off the planet, that's what's going to happen. You know, Ted Leonsis basically got the new building and a Stanley Cup built on the back of Alex Ovechkin. So if Alex Ovechkin is got to struggle for 3 years to get it, 3 or 4 years, that's what will happen.
Maybe. I mean, but do you think he would be the kind of guy that would do that, would hang on? I wonder.
Yes.
I don't.
I don't either. I'm kind of with you, Russ. I kind of think he'd be the kind of guy who'd be like, you know what? I did my best. You know, like I think that he's not going to be okay getting 10 to 15 to 20 goals a year.
No, but okay. Like I said, if he 10 goals a year is dropping off the planet for him, then his pride might kick in. If he scores 25 or 30 goals, I think he's still playing.
Yeah, if he gets 30 goals, I agree with you. I mean, and Ovechkin 30 goals.
Having fun too. Like if the team really stinks, even if he scores 25 goals, does he want to put up with 3 years of the team being that bad, no chance for a cup, just for the record? Like I don't know if he's like that. I don't know.
It doesn't feel like he is, but I mean, we don't know. Like, and I know it's important to him. Obviously, it's important. When you get that close to it, it's an important thing to him. But at the same time, I think he's more of a team guy through and through. Like I've always felt that about him. I really feel like if he thinks his chase of Gretzky is causing the team problems, he could get out.
That's another issue too. Yeah.
You know, and that so if you're gonna have you have to put him out on power plays. You have to put him out this time. You put him out with the empty net. What are you doing to try to make this record happen? That's going to be what's interesting. Although the new coach they have in there, that also, like Mike, that's what you're saying, right? It's going to take a while. Like this coaching is a different kind of system.
There's an adjustment period, and honestly, it's like because the Leafs play them this year. They only have one victory in 4 games, and
they only have 6 goals as a team,
right? And that was the weird thing, Russ, because the aspect I was looking at for the Leafs Capitals was Rasmus Sandin, who after he got traded last year had 15 points in 19 games. He really did well, and a lot of people thought, "Oh my God, this is a steal." Well, the fact was John Carlson was out of the lineup,
right.
and Sandin was playing top power play. Now Carlson's back. Carlson's the top guy in the power play, and Rasmus Sandin has 0 points. Sandin has to play the power play. Now, Carlson's 33 years old. You move on from him, but you need to. I think you need to mix in some young blood, and they have Connor McMichael and Hendrix Lapierre and all these young guys. And the whole reason they brought Carberry in was to mix in these young guys. That's going to be the difficult transition. They've got guys like Anthony Mantha, who they want to trade, and guys like TJ Oshie, who might be on the downslope of a career. That's where that franchise is. I don't think the Ovechkin thing is the big problem. I think it's some of the other players like Backstrom and Oshie who've got a lot of scars.
That's definitely a big problem. Yeah.
Oshie looks very, very old. Like I watched the play the other night, and Oshie definitely looks like he's aged.
He's up.
He's got just a ton of miles on him. I mean, he's been around, and he's. I love that guy, and it's hard to watch. It's hard to watch. It's hard to watch it tonight.
He did an interview late last season. He goes, "Look, I'm playing, but I'm not the same player. Like I recognize that."
No, his game was also just a physical. He wasn't like a super physical player, but he was definitely the kind of guy who would throw his body around pretty good. And that's one of the reasons why, again, I'm not surprised that a lot of those players now who were on that run are now starting to feel the effects of it.
Well, I mean, I saw the Capitals line up a couple nights ago, their line assignments, and it really was head scratching where Backstrom was on the 3rd line, and Backstrom is making over $9 million. And Kuznetsov was on the 2nd line, and he's making almost $8 million. And the number 1 center, the guy playing with Ovechkin, was Dylan Strome. I like Dylan Strome. I think he's a good player. He's not a number 1 center. Maybe they're trying to shake things up. Maybe they're trying to have a 3-line offensive attack. But I'm sorry, you have to either have Kuznetsov or you have to have Backstrom with Ovechkin. And maybe they just can't do that anymore because, Backstrom's got the back issues. or hip issues, and Kuznetsov and Ovechkin don't seem to be on the same, they're on the same wavelength. So yeah, they're a team in transition, maybe a team in trouble.
Yeah, it feels like they are to me, and I just watching them play. We talked about it was going to be difficult, and they're definitely not dropping off the planet yet, and they're not willing to rebuild yet. And that's the question. Like with Ovechkin, how can you rebuild necessarily? Is one of those guys who you can rebuild around. Can Ovechkin accept a different kind of role? Is he going to be okay with that? I just don't know. I mean, these are all things that are really, I think, very suspicious, at this point. But yeah, I want to also, so next we're going to go into the Vegas Golden Knights for a second, if I could, because obviously this team now, as we talked about the other day, they were only the first team since Montreal since 1785, 86 to go 5-0 after Stanley Cup. Now they're the only team ever to go 6-0 after winning a Stanley Cup in NHL history, which is pretty crazy. It's a crazy stat. But obviously the hangover or whatever. They're going to lose tonight to the Flyers. I'm throwing it out there. The Flyers are not. I'm not saying the Flyers are a good team, but the Flyers, I was checking it out, are one of two teams that have winning record against the Vegas Golden Knights. It's kind of strange. For what it's worth, the Flyers have played the Vegas Golden Knights well, and I think that it'll be interesting tonight to see if. If
the Flyers are going to beat Vegas, it would be tonight because the Flyers are playing well. They're playing well defensively.
Yeah.
And Vegas 6-0, and they eventually have to lose. They're not going to go 82-0. But like I said this on Off the Post about the Flyers, what they're doing right now and what the management is sort of plotted about what they're doing are two completely different things. This team is winning and playing good defense under John Tortorella, and I expected nothing less because that's what Torts does. But this is a team that's rebuilding. And I think what they're doing right now is counterproductive. I'm not saying you torpedo it, but honestly, you're earning points right now that is going to kill you in your end goal at the end of the year.
So then what are you going to, Mike? Mike? Here's the thing.
You can't. What can you do about that?
Point on that. But how you can't ask players on a roster?
No, you can't.
To not. They have their own contracts that are coming up as well.
No,
so, and I've said this to you on the show as well, is that it's also very early.
Yes.
That Ristolainen, again, the Flyers are down stalled. They're down Ristolainen for a longer period of time. It's starting to sound like now that he's out again and not going to be playing. And invariably what's going to happen is they're going to be competitive at times, but they don't have the high-end talent to be able to compete at the against upper echelon teams unless they play the system that they play. So, I short of completely strip mining the roster, which they kind of sort of did, and you can't move off some of the other players. They're going to do what they do at the moment, but I think what will happen invariably will be is that they will start to tumble down. They will. Just because of the talent base of other teams in the division and the fact that it's still early in the season.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it like I think everything Anthony said is true. What they're doing with Morgan Frost is wrong, though, because there's room for him in the lineup. John just doesn't want to put him in the lineup. Whatever. That's that's the coach's choice. But as far as the game, I'm not going to pick the Flyers to beat Vegas. I'm not.
Well, that's where I'm concerned about, and you're right, Anthony. There's nothing they can do about it right now. They should have thought about that when they hired Daniel Briere, and they basically have said, we're going to rebuild, but then they're not. They have a coach who's not a rebuild coach. So either you fired Tortorella, but when you're going into this, but they weren't going to do that because they signed him to a big contract, or you don't rebuild. So I don't know. They didn't strip mine it completely. They didn't trade Konechny. There are other players that they may end up trading.
No, but I mean, they were listen. We know that they were on the verge this summer of moving off a lot of players in a deal. We know that. It just it's neither again here nor there in terms of what deals. You also have a young general manager, relatively new in the game, and Danny Briere, who's kind of learning these things obviously on the job and making the connections. It's tough to kind of pull off those kind of audacious deals and completely strip mine your roster. I would also turn around and say as well that when it comes to Tortorella, they're also looking at it as whatever sort of happened within the last decade or so. They're trying to kind of build some accountability system with their players, and they feel that Tortorella is one of the more direct ways to do that.
Yeah, but the problem is, okay, and as Bill said accurately on Sunday's show, Morgan Frost played 2 games. He had 1 bad game, and everybody had a bad game in the second game, and now he's not played in 3 or 4 games.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I
so
agree. In this circumstances, there's no reason again to have, especially if you got a lineup redundancy when you have both Garnet Hathaway and Nicholas Deslauriers in the lineup.
Right. When
you could slot somebody down on that line and make that line probably better, and figure out a way to get Morgan Frost back into the lineup.
Now, sorry, go ahead. Sorry, Anthony. Go ahead.
That's okay.
So, Ak, I wanted to bring up one of your favorite subjects and one of my favorite subjects, the downfall of the Edmonton Oilers. Now, I don't take pleasure in an injury to Connor McDavid, and he's going to be out 1 to 2 weeks. I heard on a number of things that the Oilers are not pleased right now. Obviously, they don't want McDavid hurt, but the Heritage Classic is coming up this weekend, and that's a big signature event, and he's probably not going to be available. I will be very interested. And sometimes, when Sidney Crosby went out or Evgeny Malkin went out with Pittsburgh, they rallied. They rallied behind the other guy. The other guy stepped up, and the team won game. I will be very interested to see what is going to happen with the Edmonton Oilers over the next 1 to 2 weeks without Connor McDavid in the lineup, whether their goaltending will play better, whether their defense will play better, whether Evander Kane will decide, well, I'm not playing that much, so let me get into a fight, that kind of crap. I mean, This is an organization right now, like there's a lot of talent there, but it's very disjointed. And again, to the people who picked them to make the Stanley Cup final, my God, what are you thinking?
I'm still picking them to go to the Stanley Cup final. It's still staying with that. And I honestly don't. I think this is just very, very early with them. They're a team that are going to have plenty of time to get back into it. They've got a division that they can get back into it in my opinion. I think they're going to be fine. I mean, obviously this is a horrible start for them, and they have to figure it out.
I'm worried. I guaranteed them going to the conference final. I never picked a cup winner or who I thought was going to win the cup, but I thought they'd make it to the conference final. I'm going to sort of stick with it now, sheepishly, though, because I don't know what they're going to be like without McDavid. But I will tell you this. There will be an idiot on Twitter that if they go up 1-0 or 2-0, say, hey, see, look, they look better without McDavid. Somebody's going to do it.
See, Russ going, I know, I told you.
You're always going to see that, of course. And, maybe sometimes there is something to the fact that when you're struggling like this.
Yeah, the banding together.
Yeah, banding together and not counting on him, because they obviously count on him. How can you not count on him? He's that good, right? So
maybe Evander Kane will get more minutes and he'll be happy again.
Yeah, that's a weird thing. Evander Kane's complaint. I mean, he's not complaining. Evander Kane complaining is not a weird thing.
He basically, in a very low-key way, complained about the minutes he didn't get in that last game.
Let me see.
On national TV.
Let me see. He was a pain in the ass in Winnipeg. He was a pain in the ass and a distraction in Buffalo. He was a pain in the ass and a distraction in San Jose. Shock. He's a pain in the ass and a distraction in Edmonton. This guy is immensely talented, and he's a pain in the ass. I wouldn't want him on any team that I was a manager or a coach of. Not one. He's not worth it.
I don't think you're wrong. I mean, obviously, there's what you get when you get Evander Kane. Warts and all, as I like to say here in Philly. He is what he is. That is what you get. But I'm not writing him off yet either. I mean, I think that it will be interesting to see. His minutes are obviously going to go up with Connor out of the lineup. Yeah, somewhat. And if he steps up, he steps up. But Edmonton's got bigger problems than this. Bigger, and they have to adjust them. They have to stop from being scored on. And whether or not that's. Their goaltenders right now are horrendous, and their defense is horrendous right now, and they shouldn't be this way. They shouldn't be this way.
It'll be the biggest story in Canada if they start to tank.
Oh, it'll be a terrible because it implies so many. It brings on so many things, and it brings on and it's just it is pretty unexpected. I mean, with the exception of Mike, perhaps, that this would happen.
Mike is more of a hope, not like
right.
I'm going to pick it that way because I
believe this is pure analysis.
Yeah.
It's not pure analysis, but anyway.
It's pure psychotic glee, is what it is.
Yeah, it's pure psychotic. Yeah, exactly. So, I wanted to ask you about a great defenseman, Mike Justin Holl, who's become like one of the best defensemen in the NHL.
Okay, here's proof. I sent this message to Kevin Allen. Here is proof that plus minus is a worthless statistic. Because if Justin Holl, Charlie Huddy led the NHL in plus minus. Was he the best defenseman? No.
Won Stanley Cups.
Charlie Huddy was pretty good defenseman. I mean, I'll take Charlie Huddy on my team.
He wasn't even the third best defenseman on that team. Okay, no. Right now Detroit is hot. Dallas DeBrincat is scoring goals. That was a great addition. Dylan Larkin is piling up a bunch of points because he's playing with DeBrincat. They're getting decent goaltending, and their team defense has been really good so far. Justin Holl is their number 5 defenseman. Okay, he will not be leading the NHL in plus minus. And I will continue to say that Justin Holl is a terrible defenseman. Maybe in a limited role. Now in Toronto, he had to play top 4 minutes, and maybe then he was exposed. He is not a good defenseman. They overpaid for him.
Top 4 minutes there too.
What's that? He's going
to play a lot of top 4 minutes in Detroit. I'm sorry.
No, I think he's playing bottom pairing. I think he's playing with he's not playing with Sider.
No,
I don't know. I think as the year goes on, he's going to get. If he keeps playing like he's playing, he's going to get.
I think he's somebody who have to look. I think he's playing with Ben Sherratt. I think he's playing on the bottom pairing.
That's a pretty damn good bottom pairing. Let's talk about that.
Sure, yeah, but
I mean, Ben Sherratt is like a guy who remember people were trading first round draft picks for.
Oh yeah, I mean, he can still play a little bit, no question.
Yeah,
right, my point being is that he has been plugged into a role that maybe he is capable of actually playing. But who
was he playing with in Toronto?
In Toronto, they had to cover for his ass by playing their best defensive defenseman in TJ Brody because he was a liability out there, Russ. Every time they put him with anybody,
Brody seems to be a liability on his own now.
No, not at all. Actually,
not at all. Okay.
No, he's not. I mean, in the playoffs, he was last year. He did not have a good playoff, but he's playing with Morgan Riley on the top pairing, and that works. That pairing works
because Riley's covering for him.
No, I think that it's a good pairing where Brody is the defensive guy, Riley is the offensive guy, and Brody stays back. They operate on the hinge, as Don Cherry.
They know their roles, Russell.
They know their roles, right? Yeah. And Justin Holl in Toronto, his role was popping popcorn in the press box.
Yeah, but now it's
But he's doing better now, Mike, and you have.
Yeah, no. Hey, God bless him. He's a nice guy. He's making over $3 million. Detroit was happy they signed him. I think they'll regret it in the long run. I'm sorry. I don't think he's a good defenseman.
And he's regretting it in the long run. Conor Garland is out there right now. The rumors are flying around about Conor Garland.
Oh, heck, you died on the Conor Garland hill a year ago.
I've gone out and to say that I am a Conor Garland supporter. I believe in Conor Garland. I still do believe in Conor Garland in the right situations. I think the way he's been played in Vancouver is horrible.
He's been through a couple of them now, so.
Yeah, no,
maybe third time's the charm, Eck.
In Vancouver, they have not figured him out. Like they haven't figured out how to play this kid in Vancouver at all, and where to put him and how to play. Like in Arizona, he showed like great promise in my opinion.
But he also got unbridled ice time, no pressure. Like you have to take that into account too.
For sure. But I think he's more of a leader on like as far as the line goes than what they've always had him be like a background part of the line. I think if you give him his own line and say these are this is your line, you have a lot more chance with him. But there are teams that want him, and his rumors are flying around about him. He's got 3 years left on his contract, which is hard. 3.9 million, which is really
4.9.
4.9. Sure, 4.9.
4.9. Yeah.
4.9. Okay, 4.9, which is a lot.
Paid him a lot.
That's the problem. Is that
that's a lot? There's no question that's a lot. But I do think that Vancouver would take some of that back. Vancouver just doesn't want to take any money back.
Well, that's Well, that's the problem here. Okay, yeah,
Right.
4.95 for 2 more years after this year. There's talk they would have to retain probably a couple million or take a player back. I mean, they would take a player back with just this year remaining, but that's the problem here. It's like, okay, you made a mistake in terms of paying him what you paid. Is he a good player? Is he a useful player? Yes, he is. I think he could plug in someplace and be an effective, complementary second line winger. But he's being paid almost $5 million. That's not complementary second line. That's first line wingers.
In 21-22, that was his best year in Vancouver, and he took 203 shots and he had 19 goals. He had 22 at his high in Arizona that shot percentage wasn't going to be sustainable at 13.9, but he can be like that 9.4 shot percentage again, but he's not shooting like that.
Yeah.
And so that's the problem. Things have changed in Vancouver where he doesn't have the same kind of role. Garland had, he's a guy that has to actually shoot a lot.
Oh, yeah.
He's going to get the goal totals you want. And I guess Vancouver has changed and not going to give him the chance. It's going to be hard to find that team though, that needs that.
Well, one of the rumors that's out there, and I checked into it, and I found it not to be really substantiated, but was the concept of Columbus, and with Patrick Laine going on to injury reserve, maybe that Conor Garland would make some sense in Columbus, okay, because that opens up some money, and you got to get and Conor Garland I think would be a pretty good fit in Columbus. I could see him doing a lot more there. I can see him giving him the kind of situation that he needs to have there.
Theoretically, they shouldn't be devoid of scoring on that team. That's the funny thing.
Right.
The ironic thing is that the name supposedly going back in the deal would be Roslovic, who they went out and traded for because he's from the Columbus area.
Right.
So it's just not working, and he's a UFA at the end of the year. See, that's a perfect scenario for Vancouver because it's $4 million, and then the guy walks away. But that's the problem: is that you got 2 more years, and nobody wants to take.
Columbus isn't going to take on that money. I don't think they will.
It would have to be, in my opinion, it would have to be like a draft tick type situation, taking a half money type situation going on where they are, something like that. Where, Columbus could take on $3 million of it probably, and especially with
that seems like a more of an off-season trade if they could even pull it off.
It does, but don't forget the pressure on Columbus to do something this year, and the reality is that there is pressure on them to do something. They're
in trouble anyhow.
And Russ, you saw Vancouver, right? Their defense. Supposedly, they want a defenseman for Garland, and it makes sense because their defense has been terrible. Other than Quinn Hughes, their defense is terrible.
Yeah, they probably could get Justin Holl for him, but I'm just kidding. But
I said improve their defense.
The quality of defenseman that you're going to try and get for Holl is going to be negated unless you eat half that salary. And at that point, is it even worth it?
Yeah, like Andrew Peak. Is Andrew Peak going to improve the Vancouver defense?
No.
I've heard Nashville also with interest in Conor Garland. I've heard the Islanders. The Islanders are an interesting one. They would have to do something. They would have to make some kind of interesting salary cap conniving there.
Well, Lou can't do that. Come on.
I don't think the Islanders can do it, because Zach Parisi's skating. They want to fit him in. They can't even fit him in currently. And so it's like, I think they can't go that high. I think the best they can do now is trade like Wallstrom, one of those guys, give Parisi entry-level money, and that's it until the deadline. I don't think they're getting Pinto either.
I've seen the Islanders twice in the last week. They are, to quote Dennis Green, they are who we thought they were. They're the same team. They're dependent on Sorokin and on their goaltending. They're a good defensive team, and they can't freaking score. I don't know how many times, they have great. They went out and got Bo Horvat, and Bo Horvat, we said he's a good player. Is he an offensive driver? No, he's a good piece. But
I knew he wasn't an offensive driver. Like, I think in their heart of hearts, they knew he was having a career year or two in Vancouver, but their hope was, hey, we get him on the island. He and Barzal really get along, and they help each other get to this high point mark, and it hasn't happened.
Right. I think that's true. And the Islanders are going to be. I think the thing that the Islanders and Blue Jackets have in common is there's a lot of pressure on both of them to make the playoffs. They're both in fan bases who will not accept them not making the playoffs.
Well, I think the Islanders fan base is a lot tougher than Vancouver's at the moment for that.
No, but I meant Columbus. I'm sorry.
Oh, Columbus. I think even for Columbus.
Oh yeah, no, the Islanders fan base
like to make
is an extremely tough fan base on it at any time of the day. Like they no matter what situation you're talking about. The Islanders and the Sabres fan bases are kind of comparable in terms of how angry they can get and how quickly they can get angry.
Well, speaking of the Sabres, briefly here, they lost 3-1 to Montreal yesterday. There's a lot of frustration around here. Now they had a 4-game homestand. They went 2-2 on the 4-game homestand. But the thing that's really concerning for them is they're not scoring goals. Tage Thompson has got 1 goal. Alex has 1 assist in 6 games. They've broken up the top line. Their goaltending was okay, but they essentially, Devin Levi has a lower body injury, which I think was a good excuse for them to get their other goaltenders in. But the concern in Buffalo is, in spite of this being a great hockey town, in a border town, but when they play, like when they've played weekday games, they're averaging about 13,000 fans.
Yeah.
That's, they sold out the opener. They got 16,000 fans for the Islanders game on a Saturday night, but during the weekday against Tampa, Calgary, and Montreal, they're averaging 13,000 fans. Fans here are like, essentially, show me, otherwise I'm not coming. And that's, there's putting out big money. They signed Power. They've signed their core group, but they're not going to come until this team proves that they can win. And right now, they're not proving it. Right now, they're 2-4.
No, now
I think it's gonna take a little while for them to gel. I think if this truly was a test for Levi, then they now realize, hey, he probably shouldn't play more than 50 games and have to sort of adjust the goaltending rotation too.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, watching them play, they just don't have that step that they had last year right now, and they just don't have that extra little,
Not sneaking up on anybody either.
Exactly.
Right.
They didn't make the playoffs last year. Teams know, they see the players, they see the stat sheet, they see what Thompson was able to do last year and the previous year before that. They're game planning much better for them, and that's going to be up to Granato and company to adjust to that.
Everybody's battening down the hatches against them, Anthony. Like Shesterkin and the Rangers, they played defensive, shut down the middle. Played a 1-3-1. Same thing with the Islanders. They beat, Montreal essentially did that yesterday, and Jake Allen stoned them, and Varlamov. They're having the bad luck of facing hot goaltenders, that are standing on their head, and maybe that changes down
the East is loaded with them.
Right.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? The East is just ridiculous with goalies.
Yeah.
I mean, and but also they're going to have to. I mean, watching them play, you've watched them a lot more than any of us, Mike, but they're not going to score. They're not trying to score any dirty goals. You know what I mean? They're not. It feels like to me like they're not going to the net. They're not crashing the net.
Renato said the same exact thing yesterday. It's like they're not. On the power play they're passing it around, but they have somebody playing the bumper. But at 5-on-5, they're not crashing the net. They're not causing any kind of distraction for the goalie, and they have to do that. They have the players that can do that. They have big bodies like Tuck and Greenway who can go to the front of the net. They just right now are not doing it.
And it's typical of a young team.
One thing, Echo, I just want to say one thing. I'm surprised because I just looked. They had the fewest goals scored in the division, which I wouldn't have guessed this year. I would have guessed that it would have been better than that. It is early, but 13 goals in 6 games is not good.
No, it's crazy. And the reality is they are, like Anthony said, teams are game planning them. But you're also running in a situation where they're believing their own press clippings that they're a high scoring team that's just going to score goals. And the reality is with that, you cannot make that. That does not work. It doesn't work to do that. Even the Oilers, even these great high scoring teams, when they went into slumps, found ways to score ugly goals to get out of slumps. It seems like unslumping themselves is not something the Sabres are able to do right now. And they've got to figure. And I do think Renato's a great coach. I do think they'll find their way through it.
Oh, no, I think they will. It's just like they're going to be on the edge. Like I think they could make the playoffs, and I picked them to make the playoffs. But if they miss the playoffs by 4 points, I'm not going to be shocked either.
Yeah. But the point right now is that the frustration is mounting.
No, it is, and that attendance is pretty frightening because that's now it's the thing the Sabres know is that when they're good, people come. Like that's not a city where that's going to stay at 12,000 fans.
No, but I think I mean, and I don't think it's the old argument. Well, the Bills are playing right now, so no, it's not that. This fan base, in spite of what happened last year and the excitement and all the goals that were scored, they're frustrated that the team missed the playoffs by a point, that they didn't go out at the deadline and make the moves that were necessary to get them over the hump. This year, I think they made good moves. They got Eric Johnson. They got Connor Clifton. They didn't make the big move. They didn't get the goaltender. They didn't get the big defenseman. Supposedly they were in on Hannafin. The rumor is now he's going to re-sign in Calgary. They were supposedly in on Brett Pesce. Pesce is probably going to market this year. So, they didn't make those moves. They made good tactical moves. They didn't make.
Ducks are outdrawing them, Mike. That's a problem.
What's that?
The Ducks are outdrawing them.
Yeah, they're 20. They're 27th or 28th in the NHL.
And that was never the case with Buffalo. I mean, Buffalo has taken a lot of heat over the years for having their tickets be less expensive than other places. That's for sure. Like there were times I remember when the revenue sharing was going on, and the Sabres had a early on in the revenue sharing of the new NHL quote unquote. I remember one time hearing Ed Snyder talk about how the Sabres were like getting revenue sharing and they were selling out, and he said that's insane. How can your teams sell out and get revenue sharing because their ticket prices were low and they had a small building?
Well, I mean,
just because I looked at the attendance list, Islanders 8th worst. That's awful. And
That's never the case either,
worst, which proves your point.
Heck, for about 7 years, I was a Sabres season ticket holder. And I did it because they had a variable pricing, and I could get Leaf Sabres tickets at the season ticket rate, and then sell the other tickets off to my friends at whatever it cost me. At a certain point, I couldn't get people to buy tickets.
Yeah, right.
I stopped getting season tickets. That's another problem. You had like boatloads, whole sections with 4 or 5 rows of empty seats last night, especially in the corners. And then they were complaining about the whole thing about blocking Toronto and Montreal fans. They must not have done it because there were a lot of Montreal fans in the building on a Monday night. So they probably didn't do what they said they were going to do during the off season.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's ridiculous.
No, because they want the money. Because they
want the money.
Attendances. Yeah.
I mean, we talked about it before. If you're in a black fans, it should be like for the first week or something. A game was on sale, but after that,
don't go. Okay, you know how you prevent Leaf fans from buying a bunch of tickets to a Leaf Sabres game and making it sound like Maple Leaf Gardens or Scotiabank Arena when Ryan O'Reilly scores a hat trick? Win. That's how you do it, because then the fans won't sell the tickets. They'll buy the tickets, and it'll be all.
I do think that there's a general COVID malaise about people out there right now about going out still. I really think that. And
I don't think it's COVID. I think
a little bit of it is.
I think it's COVID and maybe inflation. I think that it's money is tight.
Yeah, money for sure. It's also just like the going out feels a lot more like a big thing to do now than it used to. Like to go to a game feels like you're doing something bigger than it used to feel like you're doing.
Yes.
And if you're going to see a team that's not winning or not, and if you're going to see a game that you think is going to lose, it's not really worth it to a lot of people, and it makes sense, Really quickly, I do want to talk about the draft thing for the last 5 minutes here.
One thing, just because it's ESPN related, so Greg Wyshynski just said there's 2 documentaries that are going to be on ESPN Plus. One called The Chosen One about Alexander Daigle. I'll watch that, but I'm going to feel bad if they really pummel him because he was good in juniors, and he wasn't a horrific NHL player. He just wasn't a great number 1 overall kind. And the second one's Saving Sakic. Now that one will be interesting if they get like Rupert Murdoch to really talk about the money he put in and stuff. Like that's if you get Rupert Murdoch, I'm in. If he's not in it, then I don't care.
No, I doubt he's going to contribute to a documentary for ESPN, which is Disney. So, okay, let's just talk about this briefly because I think it's a sort of a big non-story, but people are making it into a bigger story, and that's the Pride tape. I'm all for it because for this reason. It's an individual express. First of all, Travis Dermott was wearing the rainbow Pride tape before any of this happened. So he didn't put it on to make a statement. He always had it on his stick. I'm pretty sure it was always part of it. But the thing is, it's like the whole controversy last year was forcing players who had a problem with wearing the Pride jersey to wear it and then shaming them because they wouldn't wear it. Here, it's individual expression. If you want to wear the pride tape, you do. If you don't, you don't. That's fine. And a lot of players will do it and a lot of players won't. And that's fine. So I don't think it was that big of it. Now, if the NHL had banned it or fined Dermott, then they would have made a mountain out of a molehill. But now I think, okay, there'll be players throughout the league that will wear it, maybe one game, maybe the rest of the season. Fine. It's all good. It's like people can express what they believe.
It ended up in the right place. That's
yes,
the funny thing.
I think so. I think so. But it could have ended up in a bad place, and it didn't.
Yeah.
But I agree on both sides. I don't think the NHL said no tolerance, no military appreciation, no hockey fights cancer, no pride, nothing. If you want to have events outside, but on the playing surface, no, it's just the road jersey, the home jersey, and your alternate jersey, and that's it. They didn't want the controversy. They wanted to stay away from it. I have no problem with that, but I also have no problem with individual expression. So I think they ended up in the right place.
Yeah, I agree with that. I definitely agree with that. Now, as far as the draft goes, the whole concept of the draft being remote from now on is out there right now. And obviously, this is one of the COVID things where people loved it. Teams loved it. I mean, teams absolutely. I can't tell you
all of them, but some did.
Most teams I talk to.
It's this, Zach. It's all this.
No, it is. But for teams, it's like, well, yeah, first of all, you're saving money by traveling, of course, but also just the way people are so much more comfortable in their own offices making these decisions. They get everybody in there talking to each other, and they don't have to worry about, like, they can bring up a video of somebody, like, let's watch this next player. Like, they can do all these things that they can't do at a table, right? And this is something that I've talked to people about, and they all say, I've already heard, like, Lamoriello coming out and saying he's going to vote for it.
Of course.
That's a shock.
Yeah, of course, he doesn't want to leave his condo in Long Island. I mean, I'm
going to tell you, the viewers are going to lose in the end because, again, trying to mimic the NFL is never a good idea. They're a completely different animal. Yeah. It's always going to be showier. Their players are always going to be more bombastic. There's always going to be that. But the other thing is, just from a media standpoint, to cover the event now, if there are going to be fewer prospects, like I think there were going to be in previous years,
20.
There's going to be fewer stories going around there too for people to read. It's going to be a lot of the similar stuff, and that's going to get a lot of outlets to say we're not covering the draft anymore.
Well, and see that's the whole point here, because it's going to be, who are the losers in this situation? Well, the families of the players who want to go to the draft and watch their son get drafted. People for organizations who, are sort of doing a job search or whatever. But I think the fans lose out. It's an event. I think the media, first of all, it's like, okay, if you're a local media member, if you're a Buffalo media member, where are you going? Are you going to Vegas to cover 20 players and their families and no team officials? Or are you staying in Buffalo where the general manager and the coach and all the scouts are? You're probably staying in Buffalo. So as a signature event, you've ruined it. You've made it irrelevant. It's not the NFL. It's not the NBA. Those organizations, those leagues could have no fans in the stands and still make billions of dollars. That's not the NHL. They need signature events. Having the awards and the draft in the same place is a good idea. How about moving free agency from July 1st to July 5th after Canada Day and after July 4th, so you give the teams a week.
Yeah, we say that they don't want to do it.
They want to go to their damn things in Muskoka. That's why.
I don't think it ruins the event. I just think it
makes it irrelevant.
I think it's going to change it to the point where I think fewer people may watch. It really, especially on day 2, because now, part of the fun of day 2 is actually having a lot of those guys around, available to interview and such. You're not going to have a good day 2 anymore because, they're going to cut down on a lot of those players. So,
Russ, if you're going to do it decentralized and remote, you may as well go back to having the draft in one day.
I mean, It was a horrific event, but they couldn't help it because there was no other way to do it. But I would hope that they would never do the draft in one day again because it's just too much. It's too much for people like us that cover it. It's too much for everybody.
Yeah, it's too much for the teams. Definitely.
It is.
That's just a lot to ask for.
But
anyway,
but just the last thing, according to Elliott and Pierre LeBrun, they're saying it's pretty much split down the middle.
Yeah.
Now, if it's split down the middle, I find it hard to believe that Gary Bettman is going to say, "Sure, let's change." Maybe they do something, like some aspects of it and not all the others.
My prediction is it goes like it used to go this year, and they change it next year. That's what I think is going to happen.
Yeah.
So we'll have one big party in Vegas and then see you later, folks.
That. Yeah, perhaps. Well, we'll see. Let us know what you think in the comments about that. And remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. And I'll just end with this. Carter Hart, 929. Connor Hallebuck, 878. Good
Good going, Nick.